People around the world, in the big cities around the world, will not understand before it gets close to you down there. We see it up here now. It's something happening.
This was starving to death. That's the climate change.
We are doing wrong, everyone. We are destroying this planet, this way of living.
Flera typer. Det är de som går och funderar länge och sen finns det de som sätter sig vid tangentbordet och bara öppnar fördämningarna.
I have always known that this is my life. I haven't even thought about anything else. Just to look at them, you understand. Yeah.
Men man ser det som ett arbete. Jag tror att renskötseln är på helt andra premisser genom att det är en kultur i den. Den är väldigt mycket. Att det är inte som ett vanligt företag.
The Sami are an indigenous people that live in 4 different countries: Sweden, Norway, Russia, and Finland. Reindeer herding is considered one of the important cultural elements of Sami, of the Sami culture and the Sami people. And the Sami have been reindeer herders for centuries, even thousands of years.
Problemen idag är ju växlande väder, väldigt extrema väder. Riktig vinter blir kortare. Vi har ju 400 ord för snö. Och de olika sorters snö blandas ihop under en vinter idag som det inte gjorde för 10-20 år sedan. Vi får olika lager i snön som gör att det blir svårt att komma åt betet vissa år, och andra år så får vi is. Så har de väldigt svårt att få i sig någon näring.
om man lyckas hitta den före den här svälten har gått för långt, då har man en chans att göra någonting åt det, att man kan få igång den. Men har det gått för långt, då är det går som inte gör någonting. Det är hemskt. Det går inte ens att titta den i ögonen när den ligger där, för att man ser hur tungt den har, om man vet utgången. Blir det så att renarna minskar, en hel kultur som följer med renantalet, och det betyder att
What needs to be remembered here is that in Sweden we have this very particular legislation, which means that Sami indigenous rights, in order to exercise the Sami indigenous rights, basically you have to be part of a herding community and you have to practice reindeer herding. If you would stop to practice herding, you would also lose a lot of your indigenous rights.
Everybody is telling us to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else is, we cannot go to the moon. We are here and we will still be here in the future. Man kai oletse vaasolatsa suustulun ja voin reussa pannie viehkaa killi joo
মনে করেন আমাকে তো আগে নদীর সাথে ঘর ছিল, তাই আমরা ভাবলাম যে ভাঙবে না। আমার মনে করেন কোন কোন জিনিসগুলো ভালো লাগতো, গাছ গাছটা, তারপরে যে ফসল করতাম, তারপর ডুলুট করতাম, তারপরে আপনার মুরগি টুরগি পালতাম, ওটা দেখা গেছে গরু মুরগি পালতাম, ওই জিনিস টিনের থেকে আমার মনে করেন উঠে যেত। সেই জিনিসগুলো মনে করেন আমার লস, আমি আর করতে পারি কিনা তা জানি না, এই আমার কাছে বেশি খারাপ লাগে।
আমরা ওই সময় আইলা যেদিন হয়েছিল সেদিন আর কি আমরা মাছের ঘেরে আমরা মাছ মারতেছিলাম। ইতিমধ্যে আমাদের শুনছিলাম যে ওই দিন থেকে ঝড় বর্ষা বা হয়েছিল। এখন আমরা এইভাবে মোটামুটি 10 থেকে 15 মিনিট 20 মিনিটের ভিতরে আমাদের পানি খামার ক্ষেত জুড়ে আমরা একেবারে মানে ঘরের ভিতরে গলা সমান পানি যখন হয়ে যায় তখন আমরা চালে উঠছিলাম। ইতিমধ্যে দেখছিলাম আমাদের একটা নৌকা ভেসে যাচ্ছিল, নৌকাটাকে আমরা ধরছিলাম, ধরে আমরা কিছু মানুষ নৌকাতে উঠছিল, কিছু মানুষ সাঁতরে আসতে পারিনি, কিছু মানুষ ওই যে ঝড়ে কিছু মানুষ মারাও গিয়েছে।
তাতে করে দেখা যায় মন উতাল ফাতাল খেলে, বাচ্চা মানুষ করতে পারবো কিনা শেষ পর্যন্ত। তখন মনে হয় যে আমরা আর রাত পাবে না কি, আমরা সেই দিন আর আসবে না। এই বছরের মধ্যেই খালি 4বার আমরা কাগজ চড়ব চাইছি।
Bangladesh is probably the poster child in terms of vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, being affected by almost all the different impacts there are. We have floods on a regular basis, which are going to get worse. We have droughts in part of the country, which are going to get worse. We have cyclones, which are going to get more intense, if not more in number. And then we also have a very low-lying coastal area that's suffering from sea level rise and salinity intrusion already. Climate change is definitely a human rights issue because it's a problem created by human beings, particularly rich human beings, because of their lifestyle and the carbon emissions associated with those lifestyles. And the people who are going to suffer the consequences are generally poor people living in the most vulnerable parts of the planet. And so it's a problem caused by the rich, and the people who will suffer are the poor. And that is a moral issue. That is something that is not right. Dhaka city is the fastest growing megacity in the world with over 15 million people. Climate change adds an impetus to an existing trend. They come for economic reasons to the cities and to seek jobs and employment, but many of them are forced to leave because of environmental degradation, river erosion, and other kinds of environmental impacts. And we are almost certainly going to see many millions, possibly 10 million plus people no longer being able to continue their livelihoods, even with adaptations, in the coastal area in Bangladesh.
আমি ঢাকা আইছি, নদী ভাঙছে, এই জন্য থাকার কোনো আমাকে ব্যবস্থা নাই। তারপরে এলো ড্রেন, তারপরে এই যে ঘরের ভিতর দিয়ে মনে করেন বৃষ্টি হয়, বৃষ্টি হইলে ভরপুর বৃষ্টি হইলে ওই একবার বেড়া পর্যন্ত ডুববে থাকে, তখন পানি নামতে খুব কষ্ট হয়। ওদিক দিয়ে নামলে তারপরে এদিক দিয়ে মনে করেন ইচ্ছা দেই, তারপরে পানিটা যায়। আর এক চির অত্যন্ত গরম ঠান্ডায় অসুস্থ হয়ে গেছি।
If seawater continues to rise at the level it is right now, a tidal surge in 10 years' time could flood enough of Bangladesh to displace 18 to 20 million people. 18 to 20 million. And where would they go? Well, of course, the Indians worry they will go to India, which is why India has built a wall around Bangladesh.
Anybody who is trying to approach that border, any civilians in the villages that approach those borders are regularly shot by the Indian border guards who guard that fence. It's been called the new killing fields. So imagine when we have large number of climate refugees and they are trying to find shelter and higher and drier ground.
It claims it protects smuggling and illegal immigration. It's really designed to prevent a human wave of destitute people fleeing a climate-created disaster.
এটা তো খারাপ লাগে, ধরুন জন্মস্থানেই এদের তো এখানে আমাদের কোনো নিশ্চয়তা নাই, বুঝতে পারছেন। এখানে আমাদের হয়তো বাইরে শেল্টার নেওয়ার চেষ্টা করতে হবে।
I can go all the way around the world and pick out pockets where there's conflict, that climate change has accelerated that conflict in some cases greatly, where you would not normally associate it with that conflict.
Since 2005, actually, I started to witness some kind of weather changing. Like every year it gets like hotter and hotter. The desert part in Syria, the east, they also get more affected. The water, like the water supply is getting less and less. Prices increase. The wheat, the price go higher and higher. People like frustrated, very angry about the prices. They think it was like the government's intent to make the prices go higher.
No one wants to go around saying that, rising sea levels or droughts are going to cause wars, but as a contributing factor to wars, yes. In very simple terms, in the years preceding 2011, which was the year of the Arab uprisings, there'd been terrible drought conditions in North Africa and the Levant, and this had particularly hit the Syrians very badly.
The people who were growing crops out in the deserts areas had to leave, couldn't grow them. They moved to the metropolises, one in particular, Aleppo. So here you have more than a couple million people moved into Aleppo who don't have a food source, don't have a water source, don't have a source to provide financially for their family. And right there you've got the ingredients for conflict. And of course you already have the underlying conflict associated with Assad and the rebels. You throw in ISIS, and it just makes it that much worse.
What's happening since 2011 until now, of course, it's not because of the climate change. Everyone knows that, but the climate change made it so much worse.
It's very difficult to sort of trace any element of the war to climate change, but as a precursor was one of the factors that led to the conditions that made Syria explode. I think there's no doubt the drought played a major role.
I think there's a much more awareness of the Europeans on climate change. The migration side of it's a little different. The average European is not equating that migration with climate change, but there will be a migration crisis. Wait 20 years and see what climate change drives people out of Africa, the Sahel especially, and we're talking now not just 1 or 2 million, 10 or 20, and they're not going to South Africa, they're going across the Mediterranean.
We worry about the numbers who are going to have to do that, about the cultural dimensions, about that whole sense of identity that could be lost. We're hearing that we could have 200 million climate-displaced people by about 2050 or shortly afterwards. That has to be managed, and it has to be managed in a way where people share the burden equitably, where there are rules. And if you have a rules-based, then you've got to have a framework that allows for rules of accountability.
Die Menschen, die vertrieben sind oder die ihre Heimat verloren haben oder sie verlieren werden, ist, dass der Status nicht geklärt ist. Heißt es, wir sind sehr hinterher, was den Status dieser Menschen angeht, was die Rechte dieser Menschen angeht.
We want the global pact on migration, which has been worked on, to include particular focus on those who will be displaced by climate. Sometimes climate won't be, and very often won't be the sole factor, but it will be potentially the factor at the end of the day, the aggravating factor that means that people have to move, and have to move in big numbers in the future.
In the past, it's always been what we call NIMBY, not in my backyard. If it's not happening to me, I don't care. But it's pretty much happening everywhere.
Extraordinarily hot. Very hot right now. These soldiers have been working hard all day, trying to pull people out of the water, make sure that they're safe.
So many people have lost everything.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to our neighbors and family there.
Short time, and we are the generation that have to do it. And future generations will not thank us if we miss this